Good morning. It is Monday, April 6th. Welcome to the DFL Daily. I am Jim Hyington, Executive Director of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party, filling in for Richard Karlbaum today. We are here every day at 10:45 a.m. to give you the message, the actions, and the tools to take one more concrete step toward winning the 2026 midterm election this November. Really quick before I dive into it, last week we challenged you all to name in the comments of this chat someone that you were going to share that message memo with. Right now, as I go through the rest of the events coming up here, go ahead and put in the chat if you did have a conversation with somebody, how that went, who you had a conversation with. I'd love to see those comments right now. While folks are doing that right now, I want to especially thank the folks of Senate Districts 33, 39, and 50 who hosted our chair, Richard Karlbaum, this past Saturday at their conventions. And before we get into the week, we have some upcoming events. We have a few local DFL units that are meeting today. Tomorrow, we have a Greater Minnesota Candidate Forum at 7:30 p.m. We also have a coffee and conversation in Hermantown tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. For more information and future events, please check out dfl.org/events. I also wanted to take a moment before we dive in to address Donald Trump's unhinged social media comments from this weekend. Actually, you know what? I don't. I'm a parent of a toddler, and the one thing that I've learned is that when someone's having a tantrum, the best thing that you can do is ignore it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ignore that. The one thing that I will say is when you have Bernie Sanders and Marjorie Taylor Greene both agreeing that you are an unhinged, bad, insane person, you know that you've really messed up. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it this week. Every single week, we focus on one message to help name what Minnesotans are experiencing in real time and lift up DFL leaders like yourself that are doing the great work. The memo that we create and put out, the message memo is what we call it around here. Before we dive in, I just want to let you know this is the work of 7 full-time staff here at the DFL, plus people on the House caucus, people in the Senate caucus, the offices of the governor, attorney general, electeds up and down the ballot that we coordinate with, and all of our progressive partners across the ecosystem as well. This is a big lift. The reason why we do this, the reason why we invest all of these resources in it, is because it is getting harder and harder to cut through the Republican media machine. They own news. They own print. They own social media. Luckily, our weapon has always been grassroots people power, and that's what this memo is. This is giving you literally the message, the tools, and the action to go into your streets, into your communities, into your classrooms, into your places of worship, and have these conversations face to face. So we are going to share this week's message memo on the screen, and then we'll also share the PDF in the chat so you have that as well. This week, we are keeping our focus on affordability. In previous weeks, we shared data on why this is a top issue, what we are hearing on the door knocks. We shared examples of how it impacts real people, the squeezes that they are feeling on their family budgets. Today, we're going to take a look under the hood and dive into what is actually driving these costs up. Why do they keep going up? This is what we want folks to remember. It's part of the message, like we talked about, that you take off this call into your communities. We're going to put these ideas front and center right now. The reason that costs keep going up are because of choices that Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are making for you. This is not unavoidable. This does not have to happen. This is a choice. Things costing more is a choice by Republicans. Minnesotans here are paying more for the basics and footing the bill for Donald Trump's priorities. Some of these choices include tariffs. Tariff is really just another word for tax. It's a tax that actually gets passed on all the way down to the consumer. We know that. The data is proving that the tariff increases get passed all the way down to us, what you and I are buying off the shelves. It has spiked inflation and created a new term called shrinkflation. I apply that term to literally the cereal boxes that I buy at the grocery store. Have you noticed they are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and still costing the exact same? My cereal box can literally barely stand up on the shelf right now without falling over. It is so thin. That is called shrinkflation. And fewer people are being hired right now than during the pandemic. That is the impact that tariffs, aka sales tax, are having for all of us. We also know that Trump has now launched his war of choice. And one of the biggest impacts that we are seeing there is on oil, a restriction of crude oil. Crude oil that's refined into gas means that gas is going up to more than $4 a gallon. That is the price that we are all paying at the pump. But more than that, oil is how we get everything everywhere in this world. Everything that you buy was flown somewhere, drove in a truck somewhere, in a train somewhere. Everything across that supply chain needed to get those things to you. All of that takes gas. When gas costs more, the things cost more. Trump's war of choice is having massive trickle-down impacts for the cost of everything. On top of that, we know that Trump has given tax breaks for billionaires. In fact, $500 billion in tax breaks for the top 1%. And higher taxes for the poorest Americans. On top of all of that, the essential services that people rely on have been cut. Trump and Republicans are cutting Medicare and Medicaid, and that is shifting the costs for things like health insurance onto small businesses and families. And we've talked about that in the past. The message here is simple. You are doing your part. You are living up to your end of the American dream, but Republicans aren't holding up their end of the deal. And that includes every single elected Republican in the state of Minnesota. Democrats, meanwhile, are working hard to bring down costs for working Minnesotans. Let's jump into some of the facts here. Facts matter. They are the things that give our message credibility. Here is the data that is supporting what we are all seeing and feeling and experiencing on the ground. 77% of people think the economy is poor. 65% think that Trump is to blame. That's actually up 10 percentage points just from January. 55% of people believe that in January. Now 65% of people believe that Trump is to blame for the poor economy. Fewer people are being hired now than in April 2020. Think of that. The thick early days of the pandemic, we are hiring less people now than we were then. Minnesota has paid over $2.7 billion in tariffs since Donald Trump took office. Working families are paying $700 more for the essentials. Trump's war of choice is impacting inflation, mortgage rates, and oil prices, which are all going up. Consumer sentiment is down to one of its lowest points ever, lower than the 2008 financial crisis. Let me say that one more time. Lower than the 2008 financial crisis. That's how far down consumer sentiment is right now. Those tax breaks for billionaires, that looks like $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts and $1 trillion in tax cuts for the 1%. They cut $1 trillion away from people that need Medicaid, and they literally gave it to the top 1%. And those essential service cuts that we talked about, that means that 7 million people are at risk of losing their hospital access due to these Medicaid cuts. When I hear those facts, to me, that tells me a very powerful story. What do you hear with those facts? Literally right now, what do you hear? Let's pop into the chat what you hear. Some of your thoughts about that, what stories come to mind, how you might bring this to life. I want to make sure that we're making this a little interactive here. All right, while you all do that, I'm going to jump into some of the other quotes that we have then, because sometimes the easiest way to explain what's happening is to let people's words speak for themselves. Remember how we said that this is not unavoidable? This did not have to happen. It's a choice that Republicans are making. Well, let's look at what the Republicans are saying about it in their own words. Here's what Brad Finstad had to say about tariffs. He said, quote, "There was a shakeup needed." What did Donald Trump say about affordability? He said, just hold on a little while. Michelle Tafoya, who's running for the U.S. Senate on gas prices, what she said is take one less trip to Starbucks. And Donald Trump, on the increased spending of the cost of his war of choice, his response for that was, quote, "We can't take care of daycare." All right, we know it's important to get our words right. We know that words matter. So we always give you a do say and a don't say. As Democrats, we know that this discipline matters. When we stay focused on what families are experiencing, people understand the stakes. So here's a few very simple things to keep in mind right now. Do say, tariffs are the new sales tax. That's a simple word that we can use to repeat back what people are feeling. Don't get lost in the details of how tariffs work, company raising prices on consumers, things like that. We know that. We understand that. But let's start with tariffs are a new sales tax. Do say this war and the new sales tax is all a choice that Republicans have made. Don't talk about how the war is illegal and the Supreme Court found tariffs to be unconstitutional. We get lost in the weeds there a little bit. Let's start the conversation with the fact that this is a choice that Republicans have made. Do say Donald Trump started a trade war. Focus on the choices that Republicans are making that are harming regular people just like you and I. Don't say tariffs are making prices volatile. Again, we want to be centering the people that are impacted by this. The goal with all of this is to meet people where they are at and to name the harm that Republicans are causing to Minnesotans. All right. Now is the time that I know you all are ready for this part, turning this week's message into action. Here are some of the actions that you can take this week. Attend the DFL Daily. Y'all are already doing that right now. Great job. Share a graphic. We are going to put the graphic in the chat and on our website right now. And our call to action today is simple. Share in the chat what single item you have noticed has become more expensive since Donald Trump took office. For me, like I said, I noticed that cereal boxes are something that is jumping. That's just one of many, many, many examples right now. So please go ahead, put that in the chat, share the graphic that we have. And that's it, folks. Thanks for dialing in. That is this week's message memo. Thank you so much for joining us. Now you have the message, the action, and the tools to be empowered in your work today and this week when we go out in our communities and have those conversations. I know it's awkward. We're asking us to be brave here, to learn how to have these conversations at the checkout, at the gas pump, and at the mailboxes and the water coolers as well. So remember this theme, affordability, and remember the message, why costs keep going up? Because of choices Republicans are making. Keep that idea at the center of your conversations this week and help us amplify it far and wide to cut through the Republican media machine. That's it. Thank you, everybody. Happy Monday. We will see you back here tomorrow. We have 214 days until the November 3rd election. Let's go win this thing. Take care.